Hello and good afternoon. Welcome to Chat Room. My name is Betty, and today on Chat Room, we're going to continue our conversation around Suicide Prevention Awareness Month. And suicide prevention awareness, being that September is Suicide Prevention Awareness Month. So we want to continue the conversation. Last week, we introduced the topic on suicide. And we want to really bring the conversation here because we do understand that this is still a conversation or something that is still a stigma to the community. And I shared a hashtag cure stigma last time, just because this is something that National Alliance on Mental Illness is, bringing in place, because we want to really break the stigma, and we want to ensure that we bring the conversation. You as our viewers and also a member of the community and the society you're in, you get to participate by going online. There's a lot of resources. There's even games. I mean, there's a way of engaging yourself with this conversation and this topic around suicide prevention awareness, because it is a stigma. It is something that has brought about a level of people withdrawing from even bringing it up as a conversation of saying, hey, I have thought of it, or I have a friend who's thought of it. How can we help them? And so it's important for us to stay engaged, stay aware, because we are going to be each other's keeper wherever you are. If it's a family member, if it's a friend, a coworker, there's a lot of resources within our community and also at our workplaces to assist with this particular conversation. So thank you for joining us today. Welcome to our show. This is Chat Room. We're here on Sundays from 4 to 5, and our focus is mainly on mental health. And we want to ensure that we don't get to that point of where we are this month, where we're talking about suicide. We want to prevent that. We want to ensure that you get the right resources, you have access to the resources in case you get to that level. So welcome, Dedan. I see you have joined us. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you, Beatrice.
Yeah. So as I was reminding our viewers, we started the conversation this month. This is actually our first Sunday in the month of September. Our month, we are focusing on suicide prevention awareness, and just, encouraging our communities to go out there and find resources for themselves, and also just, get the conversation going around suicide, because it's a part of us and it's preventable.
Yeah. It's suicide awareness according to it's a month that's focused on prevention of suicide, as fronted by International Association of Suicide Prevention. And 10th of September is Suicide Awareness and Prevention Day, and therefore suicide is part of a concern within the community, not only at the individual level, but also societal level. Last week, we introduced ourselves to the statistics around it, and of course, the concern that it is around suicide. So we hope that this discussion will mainstream the discussion around suicide and will not be a taboo in certain situations. Some of us come from situations where talking about suicide is a taboo and nobody wants to mention. If you know someone, or if someone has considered dying by suicide. So we hope that this conversation will continue. And as this month goes on, last week we talked about trying to check out on someone, at least for 1 minute each day. So we believe that if you can be checking out on someone, it's actually a challenge that has been fronted by International Association for Suicide Prevention as a way of prevention. We wait until when it has happened is when now we start talking and we say, I actually saw the person, they didn't look okay. So if we can take a conscious effort to every day check on someone, either a stranger or even someone you know. Just call them up, ask them, are you okay? Maybe that call will be a difference between someone who would have taken their life and someone who would consider having more hope to life. So it's something, a conversation that we want to be engaged in for the rest of the month, Beatrice.
Yes. And I'm encouraged every day because I'm reminded that I have a part to play in this as a member of the society. And by just making that phone call, it gives hope. It gives hope to somebody. And so for us, we just need to continue to give that hope. We need to continue to stay engaged. We need to, not allow life to take over. We need to be able to control whatever it is that may be going on within and around us. So,
So those who missed, Beatrice, those who missed our show last week, we introduced ourselves to suicide. Today, we are going to be looking at risk factors and protective factors, things that can make you make things that you can observe that will open you up to risk of suicide, and of course, protective factors, things that can make you get away from it. But before then, I think we'll want to have a few minutes maybe for us to consider the first part of our show. Normally, this show goes into about two segments. We have the first part where we have Beatrice giving us the very inspiration moment, and then we dive into our discussion for the day. Before we dive in, I don't know if Beatrice, you'd already done that.
no, that
Okay,
would have
okay,
been a
okay.
quick moment.
I
Yeah.
came in late, so we'll have Beatrice's inspiration moment, and then we'll dive into our discussion now. If you know someone who has considered suicide, or if you have considered suicide, or if you have never heard anything about that, it's time for you to stay here to have information so that you can go and even help someone. So stick on right here as we start our show. This happens every Sunday. Now, if you are on my wall, you are not going to see Beatrice. You are going to hear her though. But for you to see her, can we go straight like our page, Bead Solution LLC? You'll be able to see a like there, and then you just go in, dive in right there. You'll be able to see her as she talks. So, Beatrice, you can take it away.
Yes, thank you, Dedan. So, as I always tell everybody, that my inspirational moment, or Betty's inspirational moment, is influenced by my experiences throughout the week. And so, as I'm walking, every day, I'm consistently thinking about how can I be a better me? How can I be of good influence to others who are around you and looking up to me? And that is how we need to live our lives. And if we do that, we will find ourselves to have an easy life. In fact, because you're not doing it by yourself, it's a collective effort. You're having conversation, you're interacting, you're engaging, you're building a network. And so for me today, I'd like for us to talk about empathy. And the last couple of shows, we've talked about, fear, courage, vulnerability, different topics to help us to sort of, and what is the word, to just break out ourselves from our comfort zones, from just the fear of the unknown, walking blindly into a situation with this sense of hope and confidence, because over time, these are things that we need in life. If you have no confidence in this life, it's very hard for you to engage or build a sense of trust around people. People will sense that lack of confidence in you, and it's very hard for them to even be able to, gravitate towards you. So today I want to talk about empathy. And when I looked up this definition, which all of us, we may be familiar with, or we are familiar with the word empathy, but I wanted to look it up because sometimes it's just important to get into the definition of words, because, we may miss a portion of it, which is important in how we engage with one another. So looking at the definition of empathy, it is the action of understanding, being aware of, being sensitive to, and vicariously experiencing the feelings, thoughts, and experience of another, of either the past or present. So, and without having these feelings, thoughts, and experiences fully communicated in an objectively explicit manner. So it is important for us to have that at the back of our head as we move into how we show empathy. And there's actually three types of empathy when I look this up, and there's the cognitive, emotional, and compassionate. When we think about the cognitive, is that ability to understand how people or how a person feels and how they might be thinking, how they might be thinking. And then when we think about emotional, and that is that affective, is that ability to share the feelings of another person. And then the last one is compassionate, and that's the empathetic concern. It's that action for that gets us to move into doing something and helping others however we can. So it is important for you to not only understand empathy, the word empathy, but know that there is three types of it. And once you know that, then you're able to identify with ways in which you can relate to individuals, and know where to assert yourself or insert yourself, because you will know how to relate when you have identified, okay, I need to be to have that ability to understand how a person feels. I need to have that ability to share their feelings with another person. I need to take action and actually help an individual however way I can. So this is important. Why? Because sometimes we want to connect with individuals, but because we don't show them empathy, we find that we lose. And as human beings, if we don't have that aspect of empathy being related to us, then there's that disconnect. Why does that happen? Because as individuals, as human beings, we are empathetic. We have that, it's innate, it's within us. So if somebody is not showing you that, then you disconnect, because people show you, you'll get to relate to people by them, and people will relate to you if you understand where they are, how they feel, and the things that maybe they are experiencing in that moment. And that is why you see politicians, they do what they do. They come, have coffee with you, they'll order pizza, even if they don't like the pizza, they'll sit down, they'll take a bite, they'll have conversations with you because they want to get into your shoes or get into what it is that you need for them to be an effective leader, an effective politician. So in life, it is important for us to sort of like cultivate this in our everyday life, because that is the only way that we're going to advance. That is the only way that we will find ourselves to gain trust with one another. There's three ways that we can do this, and I've alluded to those things, and that is by connecting, by communicating, and by collaborating. By doing these three things, these three critical things in your life, you will find yourself to be able to gain the trust, insights, and innovation from people. Because people will not provide you with what you need if you do not get into their shoes and really get that, to get to feel how they and think how they think. And so, in order for you to do that, you have to connect with them, you have to communicate, and you have to collaborate. And by doing this, you will be able to, the reward for you will be trust, you'll gain insights, and then you will find that individuals will be innovative. It will be an easy relationship for you. So today, I want to encourage you as you go about your day. Sometimes when I look at it and I put myself in the shoes of being empathetic and understanding the different components of it, have you ever thought of, moments where you have maybe lost a bid for a job, or lost for maybe you are wanting to bid for another position in your workplace? You will find that what the other, coworker did, or maybe if it's an internal, candidate that you all were looking for a position, the same position, you'll find that maybe that other individual, what they did is they went and talked to the department that they are wanting to be a part of. So, and that's how they were able to maybe have that understanding. And when they went into that interview, they were not just talking about their credentials. They were talking about from a viewpoint of having the understanding of what is their need, what is the need for the department they are applying for, how are they going to be effective, and how are they going to work with the individuals in the department that they are applying to be a part of. So empathy is very important. Like I mentioned, there is those three types that allows you to have the ability to understand how people feel, how they think, and then there's the other aspect, the emotional one, that you understand, where you share the feelings of individuals. And then there's the compassionate one, where you're able to take, so you apply them accordingly depending on where you are and the context that you're in. So it's important to have these things in you. It's important to go about your day or start your week, with that in mind. And then at the end of it all, you will see that instead of you just offering that compassion around the people that you're familiar with, you offer it, you extend it to other individuals that are not even expecting it. And then you will find that there's this level of engagement, insight, trust, as I mentioned. And then you become a better, with that increase of awareness, with that level of awareness, you become a better leader. You have better terms of engagement, planning, organization, decision making, and even coaching, because all of us, I believe, we have something to offer. And if we have that in mind when we're going into any engagement, any conversation, then we will be able to progress in a manner that will see to it that you have so much to offer than just with the people that you're familiar with. So thank you so much for listening. I hope that you have gained some insight today, as I did when I was just looking into detail around this topic, and that you will start your week with a different view of how to be empathetic and how that can actually work to your advantage. So thank you very much. Dedan,
Thank
back to
you.
you.
Thank you, Beatrice, for that. So
wherever I do, wherever I be, still Jesus goes that leaded me. He leaded me. He leaded me. By his own gate, he leaded me. His faithful follower, I will be. For by his hands he leaded me.
haya 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 haya, hiyo anaitwa Guardian Angel, he leaded me. Thank you so much for that. Now we want to move straight away to our second part of the discussion. We started by talking about what suicide is. For those who are joining us, thank you so much, Kennedy Obuya, Zipporah Nyabeta, Tom Nyakwarayeta. Those are on my wall. Marilyn, I can see Charles Nyangami. I can see Linda. Thank you so much for coming on. We are discussing suicide and suicide prevention, awareness and prevention. So stay right here, get some information that can be able to help you as you interact with your friends and others on issues of suicide. This is Suicide Awareness Month and Prevention Month. And my co-host is Beatrice. If you're on my wall, you're not able to see her. I've posted the link on the chat. You can check. You just go like our page, you'll be able to see her. If you're there, we'll be able to follow the discussion every Sunday from 4 to 5. We are here. So last week we introduced ourselves to what suicide is, statistics around it, what is happening around it. It's important now we get to the other details. What are the risk factors? What makes you be at risk of suicide or suicidal ideation? We want to consider some of the risk factors that have been proposed in terms of what makes you, who can you see is likely to engage in suicide? So those are some of the things that we want to consider today hopefully getting time also protective factors that we are going to be looking at, things that can make you at least stay away from suicide. So we are going to be looking at that. Stay right here as we engage in that discussion. So Beatrice, the first risk factor is prior suicide attempt.
Yes.
So anybody who has attempted suicide before, they are at risk of attempting it again.
Yes. I think from my just knowledge of this is because normally the first try, they tried it, either somebody came and interrupted the process. The second time is either they had a second, somebody either intervened or they had a second thought into them succeeding into the whole, just taking their lives. So yeah, you're right. That is a risk factor. Individuals have either attempted it, and I think there is statistics behind it of individuals who have succeeded. It's not their first time; they've tried it before.
Yeah, so we want to look out to our friends, neighbors, relatives, and then listen out to as someone shared that have tried suicide before. So if someone shares with you or just mention it that they have had suicidal ideations and they have tried it before and they didn't complete it, then that's a person who is at risk of trying again, because sometimes the reasons we looked at last time, one of the thing is hopelessness. So when this person comes and reaches a point of hopelessness, maybe at the last time they tried, it was because they had reached that brink. So they tried it, and for some reason it was not completed. So the person is more at risk if faced either with a similar situation or another situation to try taking their life again by suicide. So that's the first thing that we need to look out for. As someone shared that they have tried to die by suicide, they have probably tried, there are some who have probably taken medication, or probably they tried hanging themselves, or they tried jumping into moving traffic, you know,
Yeah.
and for some reason, somebody, something happened and they were not able to complete it. So that's one. The second thing is depression and other mental health disorders.
Yeah, I think that one is major because by the time somebody identifies with the fact that they are depressed or they have other mental illnesses or disorders, it's too late. And they either don't want to take medications. In fact, one of the incidents that happened within our community was of that, is that an individual didn't want to take medication because they didn't want the effects of the medication. So they continued experiencing the symptoms and the side effects that come with mental illness. And over time, it just gets to a breaking point where they can no longer take it anymore and they want to take away the pain. And the only way to take away the pain is through ending their lives. So that is actually something that has happened here within our community, and we've seen it, and it's something that we need to be cognizant of, helping our friends either by getting the right help. Sometimes people have this cultural bias and the stigmatization around the conversation with suicide, and even people being in vulnerable state of sharing what they are experiencing, and for somebody to determine that you may have a mental disorder, why don't you go? Because sometimes it's because maybe an individual has lack of awareness and they don't know that what they're experiencing is actually an illness that requires attention. And it's not just by having a conversation, it's by getting that medical help, getting a professional involved. And we need to be consistent and be, that support system around the individual.
Yeah, that's a very important point there. That we don't talk about mental illnesses and disorders sometimes, and people don't come out to talk about their mental disorders and depression. So there are so many pressures of life that may lead someone into getting depression. And sometimes within, especially among men, they don't get to talk about the things that are going on in their life. So you find you have mental disorders, and in some communities, it is not fairly diagnosed. So you have people who are struggling with different mental disorders, but they are not diagnosed. So they later consider they have suicidal ideation because of what is going on around them. And sometimes it's a mental disorder, which if it was attended to, then it would have reduced the likelihood of someone considering dying by suicide. So depression and other mental disorder is a risk factor. If someone has reported that, some people may mention just in passing that I'm depressed or I'm going through this moment. And some of us tend to take those moments like it was just another passing moment.
I
Or
do.
we look at people and we notice change in behavior, change in the way the friends, they sometimes get away from people, but we think that it is someone is going through some moment of just isolation. They are going through, there's a what, the introspection. You're going to try and get to know yourself better, so
Better.
we leave you to do that. But sometimes that lonely place, because most of the, like we said last week, one word that those people who have died by suicide, I mean those who have survived suicide, I've always said that they were feeling lonely. They felt like nobody cared. The world was not thinking about them. So that moment someone is depressed, they needed someone, but you see, you didn't reach out. Nobody reached out. If someone has shared with you, or if you feel lonely, or you feel depressed, or you have been diagnosed with a mental disorder, then it is a telltale sign you are highly at risk of
Yeah.
considering suicide. For example, bipolar, where you have the high and
Those
and
moments.
the low moments. So sometimes when you're bipolar, you are likely, to, when you're so high, you're likely to consider taking yourself. And when you go low, you're likely also to
The
consider
same.
suicide. So
Mhm.
that's a person who is at risk, and we need to look out for them. Substance use disorder is also another risk factor.
Yeah. And that is, when you think about substance abuse, I'm thinking about the illegal drugs. And what do? They take you to a high and a low. You experience those high moments and low moments, and you're not in control of yourself, and chances of you hitting those extremes, and then eventually having those suicidal thoughts or worsening the suicidal thoughts are very high. So and I think, sometimes we look at illegal drugs or, substance abuse as just the illegal drugs. It could be even just it could be legal drugs as well. Because, if you take a medication that's not been prescribed to you, you got it off the streets in the black market, you are abusing that drug and you are not using it as prescribed. And that happens a lot just because of the world that we live in. You can go anywhere and purchase anything and use it. So we have to be mindful of that. And I think one of the things that came to mind with the two incidents that have happened here locally within our community is really understanding the fact that people act differently. We cannot, think about somebody laughing as, just take it for what it is. We have to dig deeper. We have to go deeper with individuals, not take people for surface level. Our campaign or our effort of pushing individuals to, or recommending individuals to call, one another at least for a minute a day, is important, because you do it consistently and you'll be able to pick up on an individual that is either, experiencing a moment of that they're abusing a certain substance. So, yeah, it is one of the risk factors that needs to be considered.
Yeah, some substance abusers, sometimes we don't look out for them because we think in some cases nasema huyu anakwanga mlevi, or some of us will say that huyo maybe when they drink is when they talk well, but most often than not, those who are substance abusers and it has become a disorder, they are likely to have suicidal ideation. Some
Radiation.
of them want to get themselves out of the problem. They want to get into that point where they are probably saving themselves from the trouble that they have become.
Mhm.
Sometimes those who are substance abusers, or they have addictions, we label them. Once we
Mm,
label them, we put them in a corner, and then that becomes some judging moments for them. So they feel like they want to get out of this body. And
yeah.
so substance abuse disorder becomes a risk factor. So if someone is abusing a drug, either alcohol, I mean, a drug and alcohol, if they have
Mhm.
become abusers, then the likelihood of them considering suicide is very high. The other
Yeah.
one is family history of mental health or substance abuse.
Mm,
If you are
mhm.
coming from a family where you have abusers or maybe mental health issues, then
Mhm.
you are at risk. It's just like
Yeah.
there are some other conditions that if you are coming from a family that has them, there's genetic um, uh,
Predispositions. Yeah.
yeah disposition. So you want to check out uh, that family history. Are
Mhm.
you from a family that has some adjustment issues as far as mental health is concerned? So you want
Yeah.
to look out that it can be a risk factor for you.
Yeah. No, that is important, and and this we have to look at it from the context of your background as well, because sometimes, like you mentioned, we look at individuals that would be drunk as just, that's just them, but you're not thinking about them maybe experiencing a mental, they're struggling with themselves, they're struggling to control themselves, and so things go undiagnosed over time. So it's important for us to, even within our communities right now, with the level of awareness that we have. And I just wanted to just highlight something, because mental health is a conversation that individuals don't want to talk about, and especially suicide. And so when it comes to us even having this conversation discussion, it's hard for us to even, bring about this engagement from individuals, because people would rather listen to this conversation in, privately, not listen to it when everybody else is watching. We need to get away from that. So I think when you talk about that family history, we look at the biology. It's important for us now, with the access to information that we have, with, family history, even just finding out, what happened, what is going on with individuals in your family tree current state, and even from previous life, if, I mean, not previous life, but individuals that have passed on. It's important to understand that now, especially because there's a lot of stressors in this life now. There's things that are going on that are could be inflicting some level of stress, where there's responsibility, involved, where there is, with the current economy and the pandemic, you could be feeling a certain way, but you're like, I'm a happy person, but I'm feeling this way. There's chances are that you have that the genetics for it, and it's important maybe for you to take action and to find out, how can you be able to manage it. And that comes from us having some level of awareness, getting informed, understanding our families, opening up the conversation around the tables, dinner tables, the families that we're in, and understanding where have we been, how has our family dealt with certain situation, have we understood why this individual is this way, versus just you know um, stating that they're a drunk, or taking them for the face value. We need to go deeper.
Yeah. Thanks so much for that. When you talk about family history of mental health and substance abuse, normally in therapeutic approaches, especially the family systems approach, they have one thing they call the genogram. Now, genogram, Beatrice, is when you go for therapy, the counselor or the psychologist will consider drawing your family tree
Mm-hmm.
in terms of what are the things that have happened within, maybe from first generation up to like 2 or 3 generations back.
Mm-hmm.
And at times, maybe for those of us who would have the means and the ways to see a professional, it's important to see a professional so that they can help you understand. Because I know sometimes we don't know if we do have mental health disorder and if it is a family thing. It
Mm-hmm.
could be within the family you are having it, but since you haven't taken time to go and look out and even see a professional to have that kind of assessment done for you, know
Mm-hmm.
that, okay, fine, this person is going through this problem. It is something that is within the genetics and is likely to predispose them. Once you know that, you are likely to have preventive approaches. You
Mm-hmm.
say, okay, fine, I know I have a history in our family of mental health issues. So I do not want to exacerbate by doing something else that will make it worse.
Mm-hmm.
So I know I need to take charge. I know there are some people. There was an interesting research that was done, that was found that some people who actually took alcohol, but they didn't get addicted, and
Mm-hmm.
the others who actually took alcohol and got addicted to it. So they are trying to look at what is the difference between the two. Is predisposing factors. So
Mm-hmm.
you could be more predisposed than someone else. So you are
Someone else.
trying to expose yourself to something that it becomes worse for you than another
Mm-hmm.
person. So
Yes.
when they draw a genogram for you, they look back into your families, they look back into your third, fourth generation, and they can bring out certain aspects that will enlighten someone who is going to be looking at that, especially look at family history.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting, because some of us don't look at that much. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Another interesting bit, just to divert. Okay, I think it's also connected to this. There are some of us who would be frustrated when you're trying to get children and you're not getting them, and then of course you keep having miscarriages. Some of them are related to the family history.
Mm-hmm.
When you meet someone and you find that the two of you have certain level of they call them in some situations they call them your connection. I think blood something. It's some technical thing that makes you guys keep having miscarriages. Something to
Mm-hmm.
do with your blood group or something. So you see,
Mm-hmm.
these are things if you knew
Research
before,
factor or something.
you'd have said, okay, fine, we were coming together, but our chance of getting pregnant is low. But you see, once they come in together and then you start trying and it keeps failing, then some of them become suicidal
Suicide, right?
because of the pressure that is
Mm-hmm.
made by either of them. Maybe the
Mm-hmm.
pressure from the family. Why aren't you getting a baby for us? Pressure from the man or from the lady's side, and you see
Yeah.
now they can't do anything about it, and it has
Mm-hmm.
become a societal issue. And some of them now you find people coming in and saying, "I can't live anymore. If I'm
Yeah.
going to keep having this pressure, you rather just get yourself out of it."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
other thing is family history of suicide.
Ah.
If you find someone in your family that has died by suicide, your brother, your dad, your grandfather, your
Mm.
you are at risk, as opposed to one person who comes from a family that nobody has ever died by suicide.
Yeah. No, yeah, definitely. I think that goes back to what you just mentioned. I think I think there's this and I don't know if there's a technical term for this where it's the twins concept that one generation is skipped and then the next generation gets a twin. I want to associate it with that because you'll find that there's chances of an individual that's repeating itself generation to generation, suicide happening because it has happened before. And so it is important to identify with the triggers, identify with what led to that individual taking their life, and then those triggers are managed within the family context because hey, we have that genetic within our family, we have those genetics within our family, or that has actually gone all the way and has an individual has succeeded in taking their life. So I think it's important for us to have that at the back of our head so that we know what are certain triggers that.
Yeah, like we said when we were talking about depression I think in our earlier chat,
Mhm.
uh like there was we said there's a connection between depression and suicide. So depression may also have there's that part of it that is within the family, that's genetic. So you may want to also look at it that way, that because of predisposition for depression,
Mm.
then also you have had someone in your family that has died by suicide. It
Mhm.
also exposes you to that as a solution. Some of it
Mm.
might not necessarily be in terms of genetic per se, but
Yeah.
the idea of looking at being exposed to it as a solution to a certain problem. So you say, if my mom or my dad or my grandfather considered it, then for me, I might be able to consider it. So that exposure, maybe media, maybe within the family, and it came
Mhm.
out as a solution, this
Mhm.
person is likely to make it as a consideration for
Yeah.
for for their solutions to their problem. So we may want to ask someone. Now we are trying to tick. It's like a checklist. Do
Mm.
I know someone, or have I had someone who has taken their life by suicide within our family?
Mhm.
Then I want to look out for this person more,
Mhm.
because they might have that as a consideration to their
Mhm.
solution.
Yeah.
They might want to also, you might want to see, okay, fine, if it happened, you see it has been talked about, so
Yeah.
you're likely to
Mhm.
consider suicide.
Mhm.
The other thing is, if you have experienced violence, for example, physical or sexual abuse. If you have been abused before, or physical violence, there's a risk factor to that.
Yeah. Yeah. And with that, I think it comes with not having to either have received the help needed after the event, or not tell you never told anybody that you experienced it, so you have kept it, you know um, and you're dealing with it internally, where there's no solution, there is no resolve. So you are going through these emotions over and over and over again, and over time then they go into a mental disorder, and then they turn into suicidal ideations, and then eventually you might end up taking your life. So I think it's either you haven't dealt with the issue by getting the right help, because you've had that abuse, and you just have that anger that is built in you, and with everything in life you're looking at it as there's no hope, because I experienced this. If people get to know that I experienced this in my life, I can't imagine what they will think of me. Did I allow it? You know, how did I present myself? Maybe from a sexual abuse perspective, the individual is now looking at themselves as the ones who actually instigated or brought the abuse to themselves. And so, and that can be influenced by a lot of factors depending on your environment. Do people are people embracing of such do people embrace individuals that have gone through abuse, or do they just shun them away and say, oh, you're no good for you're not good for our community, you have brought about shame to our community. So people keep telling you negativity. We keep hearing negativity and negativity, and I think that is the experience that most individuals that have gone through abuse, and then eventually it becomes a mental issue because they can no longer control the emotions, or they don't have anywhere to go to express themselves and get the right help for what they have gone through over time.
So yeah, so we may want to, if someone is going through violence in any way, maybe domestic violence, like maybe a husband or a wife who is being beaten, and violence can be in many ways, or abuse, sexual, physical. They are likely to consider taking their life, and when they feel like this is the last option. So that's a risk factor. And you can experience violence in terms of where you stay. You see it, you watch it every day.
Mhm.
Children, teenagers who stay in places where they see a lot of violence
Mhm.
among their parents. You also, if you have experienced violence yourself, you've been beaten, or even you've experienced violence in any way.
Yeah.
Um, Physical abuse, sexual abuse, those who have experienced rape, sometimes they feel that they are worthless. And I once dealt with a client who was suicidal, and this client was at over 30, but she was suicidal because of things that happened when she was younger in her teenage. So
Mhm.
this thing had stayed with her for all those years, and one thing had happened. She had not forgiven herself, and she
Mhm.
was feeling worthless. So as you say that, then it kind of brought in the feeling for most of us. Maybe we have been sexually abused, or you are violated, you were raped, you are likely
Mhm.
to consider suicide
Yeah.
because you feel worthless, you feel like the world doesn't care. And if we are having people around us who have such concern, who go through that, then I think the best thing for us is to do is expose them to available resources. If
Mhm.
we do not have the necessary training or the necessary the required uh, uh, resources to do it, we refer them where appropriate. If
Mhm.
someone shares in our process of talking and someone tells you that I've experienced this kind of violence, I'm going through this, in
Mhm.
some situations, some communities, they have resources, they have all these numbers that you can call. But if
Mhm.
you have gone through that, then it is a predisposing factor. It's put you into um, into the way of dying by suicide. Now, medical illness, maybe the two last ones that we want to consider: medical illness, and maybe if you are any age between 15 at 24, or 60 and above. 15 to 24, you're likely to die by suicide, or 60 and above, you're likely to die by suicide.
Yeah.
If you have medical illness, for example, some of them die by suicide for a long time. Those who had been diagnosed with HIV before the awareness of it, and the process of living with HIV, having the ARVs and all, some
Mhm.
of them would be shocked and would consider dying by suicide. So medical illness, if you have a medical illness, you are likely, you are at risk.
Yeah. Yeah, that's big because, especially when it's been over time. you know, you're stressed. You can no longer be. You feel like you can not contribute to the society as you would want to be. So you consider yourself to be worthless, and because of the disease process that you're undergoing, or you cannot pursue your dream, or you cannot, take on challenges that you'd like to take on a certain time in your life. So you want to end it. You want to end it because, number one, you want to end the pain, you want to end the shame. You feel like that will, by ending it, it will bring by ending it will just, take away maybe the burden from the individuals that are your caregivers. So those are some of the experiences when it comes to illness, or medical conditions that individuals have experienced, where they end up considering suicide. That, based on my experiences, has been because they can no longer take it. They want to relieve their caregivers off of the, just, they feel like they're burdening them, and they're not allowing them to explore their lives, because they're there consistently taking care of them, because they either can't drive, they can't, because of their condition, they are denied certain access to community, if it's a driver's license, or if just being independent. So, those are the some of the things that I can think of that would lead to an individual, going to that extreme.
Medical illness in some situations it exposes you to helplessness, and some of them feel like I do not want to be helpless. I do not want to reach that point where, and some of it is because of misinformation.
Mm-hmm.
When they don't have information about what are the support systems that exist
Mm-hmm.
in certain medical conditions, some people may consider illness. Now, finally, Beatrice, men die by suicide more,
Mm-hmm.
but women attempt
Okay.
suicide more. This is according to CDC. What the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, they say that men die more by suicide, but ladies attempt more. Now, this is it.
Mm-hmm.
Men, when they're going to try to take their lives by suicide, they are likely to try more lethal methods.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
a man is likely to use a firearm, probably a gun, likely to suffocate themselves. The ones that there's very little chance of like survival. They
Yeah.
go and they go. But ladies attempt safer methods, like of dying. They're likely to take a poison here. Someone will rush and it's gonna help them from
Yeah.
from dying by suicide. So
Yeah.
some psychologists researched that concept
Mm-hmm.
and looked at the lady's attempt for suicide,
Mm-hmm.
and he came up with an interesting postulate, that conclusion, that ladies, when they're going to attempt suicide, their intention most of the time is not necessarily to die, but is to seek attention.
Okay.
So if someone would come in and get them before it happens, they do not take the more lethal one. But when a
Mm-hmm.
man decides to die, he's going actually to die. So
Mm-hmm.
he tries the gun, the one that is more lethal.
Mm-hmm.
So now that's a psychologist perspective according to his conclusions that he thought. But either way, we may want to say a man is more at risk for suicide according to CDC,
Mm-hmm.
of dying by suicide, but a lady is makes more attempts than
Yeah.
a man.
Mm-hmm.
But all that we are saying is, even one person dying, it's not just a number, it's a life.
Yeah.
So we are trying to say, as we engage in this discussion, it's not, the intention is not that we know that you're gonna be trying. It's whatever. It's that, can we have a conversation that will either reduce or make someone want to live more
Mm-hmm.
than want to die more.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we are looking at risk factors. We are not able to get into the protective factors, which will lead us into our next week's discussion about what therefore are the protective factors that will make us not engage in. Think about suicide.
Suicidal.
Think about living as opposed to dying. Yeah.
Dying. Yeah. No, great conversation, great insights. I think, as you mentioned, we just want to continue this conversation and just, you know, peel the onion, one layer at a time, because in doing so, then we are able to, even by listening or even going and researching for ourselves, then there's this ownership, that the sense of ownership that comes to self. And then you're able to look around you and say, what am I doing? First of all, look at yourself. I look at yourself and say, do I have any of this? And what am I doing about it? Then look around you, start with your family, start with, what are you doing to either trigger somebody else's thought process into some of the risk factors that we've talked about. And then, just look at what are some of the signs and symptoms. Let us dig deeper into our relationships. Let us not take individuals from a surface level. Let us take that into, having that one conversation with an individual every day for a minute, taking that seriously and really owning it, and identifying with what can you do every single day, at least for the month of September. Then it becomes routine for you, because you do it so many times, it becomes routine, and we continue to stay engaged. So thank you so much for listening today, and hopefully you get to share this video, like our page, and continue to come, and even if it's viewing it at a later time, if you want to stay engaged and just send us a message, do that, and we can direct you to the right resources around suicide prevention awareness.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. And remember, on 10th of September is World Suicide Awareness and Prevention Day. Kindly do something, stay locked, and hope to see you next Sunday. God bless you. It's me, Dedan, and Beatrice.
Let's see.
See you
Bye.
again next week on Sunday from 4 to 5. God bless you. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.